All right, let's get started, you guys. Thanks for joining. If you don't already know, today we're talking about fabric sourcing. I know you guys have made it really clear that fabric sourcing is something that is a huge pain in the ass. And today we're going to talk about how to make it easier. We're going to talk about just some key distinctions to understand exactly what you need to do, what you need to focus on. I'm not going to get into level 2, 3. This is really just one-on-one stuff. During this process, go ahead and please ask any questions that you have, and at the end we'll do some Q&A, and feel free to just chat me up right here at the bottom. Let's get into it. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. Erica, can you hear me okay? All right, let's share the screen. Now you're on my Facebook. I think we're live here too on Facebook. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this up. Present. All right. Very good. So first thing that I wanted to get into is if you don't know who we are and what we're about, IndieSource is an apparel manufacturer, a product development agency. We support brands in everything that they need to do from the moment that they have an idea in their head through to when the product is shipped out and delivered and launched. We have today worked with over 250 brands. We support them in a lot of different ways, but really the biggest thing that comes up, the thing that we spend the most time on, are the initial phases, the planning out of a collection, the determining price points, and the fabric sourcing, which is a really, really big one. This is very often one of the biggest challenges that people have in terms of finding fabric, but also communicating with vendors so that there's real clarity as to what to expect. This industry is kind of archaic. There's a lot of old school thinkers in this industry. And so what we are all doing together, me and you guys, is coming in and asking for change, right? So whether that's sustainable fabric or whether that's, not having to buy 1,000 yards of something, we're disrupting the industry together. So I'm excited to hear a little bit about what you guys are working on. And I want to get into this right now. So first thing is I want to make some distinctions of the types of fabric vendors that you might see out there, okay? So you guys might not know this. So retail stores, a lot of times, I'll give you an example of retail, Mood fabric. So a lot of times designers will come to me with fabric from Mood, right? And for me, I'm saying, okay, wait a second. So the fabric is expensive and they don't have any real yardage over 100 yards. And so what do you do when you have to go into production? You're kind of stuck. So that's an example of a retailer. I mean, there's a lot of other fabric companies that do sell fabric. Those are going to be higher priced, and it's going to be difficult for you to actually make a margin on it. All right, so then the second one is online websites. I wanted to show you an example of an online website. So here you go. Let me go back into presentation mode. So an online website, let me give you an example really quick. Organic Cotton Plus, this is one that you might find. They do have really good fabrics. If you scroll down here, you can see it looks like they're between like $12. If you go up to 50 yards, they're like $9. That may or may not work for you. Again, if you're selling product at a high price point, then it is doable, but it's very, very difficult to have a margin there. So I kind of recommend avoiding most online stores, but that is another one right there. Okay, so coming back to it. The last one, third one is jobbers. So what are jobbers? Jobbers are people around the city that they make money by kind of running around and finding fabric that you need. I think this is a very good resource when you're starting out because they don't take such a huge margin. Really what they do is they will find the fabric that you need. They work directly with lots of other mills and importers, and they will find the fabric. They'll add maybe a nickel or a dime to each yard that you buy, but they're kind of like doing some work for you. So it's pretty valuable to work with different jobbers. They need to be reputable and you need to trust them, but they, because they don't have a lot of overhead, they are able to kind of work on commission. So that's a jobber. The next one is mills. So mills are the actual companies that are making the fabric. So you guys know this. There's a number of knitting mills in LA. I don't really think we have any wovens yet. We would love for that to happen. I'm pretty sure there are some in North Carolina though. So mills, if you can do that, that's the most sustainable process. We work directly with plenty of mills in this town, and it allows us to get good prices for our brands. And one of the tricky parts with them, as I said at the bottom here, is that the further up the supply chain you go, the lower the cost, right? So if you're the guy that's making all of the fabric, that means that your prices are lower, right? You're higher up in the supply chain. Now, the problem with that sometimes for new designers is you can't buy their minimum order, and they need to be making stuff all the time because they have huge overhead. So that's kind of where it becomes tricky. One of the things that we do to help brands to avoid that is we order a lot from them. So sometimes they'll give us discounts, or they'll allow us to do less because we have another order with them that's running for 1,000 units. So then or 1,000 yards rather. So then we can go and get a couple of rolls. So you kind of have to work your way in there. And so mills are the guys making the actual fabric from the yarn. Second to last one is converters. These are people that are bringing in what's called graze goods into the country, and they're finishing them, right? So that could be, they're doing the dyeing, the washes, whatever it is that they need to do to finish it. They're importing, and then they're modifying it somehow, and then they're going to sell it. And then fabric reps, you guys probably talk to different reps. That really can be anybody from any mill, importer, or any store. But those are the people that are supporting you. They usually work on commission, or they have commission plus their base, and they're customer service. So here's the interesting thing with fabric reps. You want to use them as much as possible because they have a ton of information. They will teach you so much. And at IndieSource, we have probably, 2 to 3 reps in and out of our office every day from different companies. We work with about 70 different vendors around the city. So they're coming in and out, bringing us stuff. We're going to them. So there's a lot of back and forth. And so they're very helpful for us to source quickly. Those are the types of fabric vendors. So next thing I want to talk about is creating a budget for your fabric spend. I'm not going to get so much into costing because I've done this before, but I want to talk about the process. So let me take a step back. When you're in the very beginning, it is okay to go around and kind of like peruse, right? You want to kind of get your creative juices flowing. So there's nothing wrong with going around and looking at the different fabrics and touching and feeling, and like, that's fine. That's a creative opportunity. However, once you have your collection set up, you're doing 8 styles. These are what they are, and this is what you're selling them for. What you need to do is create a budget. A budget for fabric is what's going to allow you to go into a fabric place, and say, I'm looking for this kind of fabric. I need it to be this price point, and this is how much I can buy, okay? So this example, we start with the garment retail price point as an example, like $100, okay? Let's say our manufacturing price, we want to be paying $35 for this, all right, for this garment that we're making. The next thing you do after that is you want to look at labor before you look at fabric. So labor, let's say in this example, we're at $26 for cutting, sewing, trimming, printing, packing, whatever it might be. How do you get that? Well, you talk to your manufacturer, somebody that's going to be making it, and you try to get some estimates or some rough numbers for that, right? Then finally, once you subtract the 35 from the 26, you have yourself a budget for materials. Now okay, well, all right, I'm going to go out. This is how much money I have. But it's not as simple as that, because you have to then connect that to the actual fabric usage, the utilization, like how much your yield is going to be. So right here, you can see we have the fabric price, right, times the yield is the fabric cost. So if your fabric price is $5 and your yield is 0.5, anybody know what the cost is going to be? Right, $2.50, okay? So that's, again, another thing that you can really keep in mind. Again, the people that are making your samples should be able to help you with the yield. Specifically, the cutter can help you get your yield of your fabric even before you've done marking and grading. When you do marking and grading, it will get the perfect and most exact and accurate yield. But if you want something a little bit earlier, I would ask your cutter to support you with getting an idea of how much fabric you're going to use, right? They can take a garment, your reference sample, and they can go back and look through that. So you have your fabric price now, right? Then you come down and you look at your trims, okay? So for this, it's the number of trims per garment times the price. So 5 cents per button, right? All right, we need 15 buttons. We need a zipper. We need some elastic. All these things go into it, and you want to start to build out your sheet. The point here is that you don't want to go to a vendor and say, you know, I don't know what I want, or I want everything. Like, the biggest issue that designers have is a lack of specificity. And so what that means is they're hurting themselves and they're looking bad. They're looking like a noob, right? And so I want to teach you guys how to look professional when you're talking to people and to know what you're looking for, right? You want to go in saying, being very specific and explaining, I'm looking for a jersey, a 200 GSM, it's burgundy, the composition is 50 poly, 50 cotton, you know, like all of the details, rather than just saying, you know, I want some soft fabrics. You're not going to get very far, and it's going to take you longer, which means it costs you more money. Make sense? Cool. All right. So this is the thing that I did on the Instagram yesterday. Hopefully you guys saw that. So I'm going to go through these again, and do me a favor and go to our Instagram too and comment. I want to know if you guys are doing these things. I want to know, like, if this is new information to you, or if this is something that you're just learning. I'm really curious to know whether or not people are already currently asking this information to their fabric vendors. So go on to Indie_source, and comment under the video I did yesterday, and let me know if this is something you already know or if this is new information. Okay, number one, some of these are obvious to me, but lead times. You got to know if they have it in stock, or if it's not in stock, how soon it will be sent to you. So some importers are constantly bringing stuff in. So if you're buying from overseas, you're buying from an importer that is buying from overseas, you need to know exactly when your fabric's coming. So that's number one, is it there? It's sitting ready to go. Number two are the MOQs, so the minimum order quantity. How many do you have to buy? How many yards, right? The best you're really gonna get without paying hefty surcharge is one roll. So we want to look for vendors that have a one roll minimum. So you can ask them that when you go in, say, what's your minimum? Or can we buy one roll? And very often, if they're stocking goods, they will sell that to you. If they're making stuff to order, if they're a made to order company, there's no way they're going to give you a roll, because they have to go and make more. Okay. Very often it's also per color, because the roll is one color. So you might go in and say, all right, we're going to do one blue, one green, one red of this cotton jersey fabric. Now, how does that play into minimums with production? For us, usually we really try to get our brands to be around 300 pieces, because it allows them to have an actual margin where they can start making some money, right? If you go down to 100 units, there's no margin at all. But in some cases that makes sense, because you're just testing the market. So you just go for the break even. Now, when you have 3 colors, and you divide those up, so now you have 100 per color. If, as long as they're the same fabric, you can cut them together. And when you divide that for sizes, then you have, you know, 20 to 30 per SKU. And now you start to see, okay, my first run, if I can buy these 2 or 3 colors of this one fabric, then in my style, my t-shirt, right, for this shirt, I only have 20 charcoal mediums. Right? And then from there, that's your inventory. And it's a pretty good place to start. You don't want to be with that much less than that, really, because you're going to have to go and do another production right away. That's the MOQs, kind of like a little tangent in terms of manufacturing, but I know you guys need this stuff. So then the number 3 is the price per yard. How much does it cost? One of the things I mentioned in the video is lock them into a price, lock them down to a price, right? So you want to make it super clear that you have real intent to buy, and I'll show you guys how to do that a little bit more later on, but lock them into the price, get it in writing from them in an email, and then also be cognizant that there's a good chance they're going to be asking for more money to sample. Sample yardage costs more because they have to go, they have to send somebody back in the warehouse to cut it off, and it takes time. It's kind of an inconvenience, but I've been basically fighting all of the fabric vendors in the city for the past 6 or 7 years to do this type of thing for me. I think sometimes they don't understand the value. The old school guys are really stuck. Like, they just don't want to do sampling, and they basically want it to be, you know, 20 years ago where they were doing hundreds of thousands of yards, and that's just not the way it is anymore. So push on that a little bit. And if they're really not interested in doing sample yardage at all, I would say just don't work with them at all. they need to understand the long-term potential. So that's my opinion. Number 4 is the cuttable width. This is the width of your fabric, right? So if the fabric is narrow, you're not going to get as much out of it. It's wider, you get more out of it. So you're not just looking at the price per yard, you're looking at the price per yard in relationship to the width so that you can get more out of that fabric. If you guys are interested, I can do a video on how to calculate the yield using the cuttable width. So if you're interested in that, again, hit me up on social and just let me know that's something that would be helpful. So you can kind of get an idea of how to get the yield and for your garment to figure out how much fabric you might need. Let me know if that's something of interest to you. Then the next one is the weight. I know this is tricky, and obviously you'll see sometimes it's called 30 singles, sometimes it's called a certain GSM, sometimes it's by the ounces. You're not going to become an expert in that overnight and until you feel like as much fabric as we felt here. But what I would say is if you can find a reference of something you like, bring that to them, right? So what I mean by that is find something in the market that has, even if it's just the weight, it could even be totally different fabric, but bring that in and say, well, I want the jersey fabric. This is a tri-blend, right? Polyester, cotton, rayon. And I want charcoal. Oh, and I don't know what the weight is, but here's an example of what I want. Be specific. This will make them very happy to work with you, I promise, okay? That's the weight. Number 6, you want to have inventory and frequency of purchasing. So you need them to send you the inventory so that you know that there's enough fabric for you now. And then frequency of purchasing is important. I say purchasing because I'm thinking about importers, but I mean, basically how often is that in stock, right? Get some data from them on that. It's so important because we'll go into this in a minute, but it is so important to know how often the fabric will be available so you're not going backwards into development. All right, next thing is payment terms. So how do they accept payment? I have personally gone to fabric vendors to set them up on credit card merchant processors. So trust me, people will be wanting you to fax stuff. Try to get them to step up their game. We honestly all need to work on this together because most fabric vendors just they're not with it. We have to seriously just work so hard to get them to use technology. So ask them upfront what their payment terms are so you know what you're able to do. You're probably not going to get any net terms with them if you've never done business with them. So try to build a relationship and then you could start to get your fabric loaded where they cover that for some number of days. And then, just how they take payment. All right, next thing, closeout fabrics versus in stock. I get this all the time, mostly because people come to me with fabric that they've sourced and I say, okay, great. Well, you're ready for production, are you? Send us the fabric. We'll begin to cut and sew your production. And they say, oh, it's not in stock anymore. I say, okay, well, what do you want to do? Well, we need to source new fabric, right? And so there lies the problem, is that closeouts can be a good strategy. But if you're looking for consistent production and to create a sustainable business, it's not good to do. I will give one benefit to closeouts. They're cheap very often, and they will, if your business is a scarcity business, which means you're constantly just doing small runs or any size of runs, but your customers know when it's gone, then that can work for you. As long as that's part of your business model, closeouts can work. Otherwise, I recommend using consistent in-stock fabrics. Okay. Now, this leads us back to how to do sourcing right. So when I say why it's important to sample with production fabrics, we're talking about the value of using one thing that's going to be there. Okay. So here are some of the risks that are involved when you use fabric that's not available in the future and what that means. Here are some of the things that can happen. So let's say you go through the process, you source something from Mood, or you source something from downtown LA on the street, right? And it's just, you know there's not going to be there again, right? So here's what could actually happen. They help you understand what could happen if you do that. Number one, the fabric that you now have to source, the new fabric, is more expensive, right? Now that eats into your margin and you've completely destroyed your entire model for making money, okay? That's number one. Number two, the new fabric may be a different width, okay? So let's say that the first fabric you bought was 58 inches cuttable. And then the second fabric that you find, you find the fabric, but it's smaller or it's much bigger. Regardless, that means you probably have to make new markers. You have to redo a bunch of work that you've done, and it's another waste of money. Number three, the fabric has a different stretch, right? If you have a fabric with one stretch and you make a pattern, and then you go and you do another fabric with an entirely different stretch, you have to adjust your pattern. It's not gonna fit the same. So what does that mean? More pattern work and higher costs. So what is the point of this? Avoid this, do it right the first time, and just totally nail the fabrics in the very beginning. Because that's step one, right? Step one is planning this thing out and figuring out what your financials are and how many styles you're doing. But step two, that's the sourcing. That's really understanding all the fabrics they're gonna use and making those decisions so you don't have to go backwards. All right, a couple of little tips. This is an example of a purchase order I just pulled. I just want you guys to see an example of what a PO looks like. Yes, you should be sending them for fabric samples, okay? Even if it's like this is 12 yards. And we sent this to Asher Fabric this month, and we paid $8 for it. It's an organic poplin. You want to have the style number. Usually the style number will also dictate maybe like the color or something. And so make sure you put that in there too, unless it's just all going to be like a off-white or something. And then you can see at the bottom, we have some kind of hefty regulations because we want to make sure people are delivering good quality product. Send a purchase order every time. Number one, it's professional. Number two, it will keep your books in order, right? So when you are spending money on these fabrics, you will get a bill from them, and then you put that bill into your accounting system, QuickBooks, that's what we use. And now you can start to track your expenses, okay? Now, if you work with IndieSource, you don't have to deal with any of this. We handle all of it for you because we buy all of the fabric on your behalf. So, but again, I'm teaching the world, like whether they work with us or not, I want you guys to be able to do this. And if you can source all your fabric effectively, then great, you can do that. And then hit us up when you're done and we can work with you on the manufacturing side or finishing up the samples. So this is sending out a purchase order, and these are some of the key areas that you need to look for. Okay, now I wanna show you the other work that's on your plate if you're gonna be sourcing on stuff. You have to create a bill of materials. And so this is where you are going to, I'm gonna pull this up. Yes, I'll send you guys the slides. Don't worry about it. All right, check it out. So this is a bill of materials template that we made, pretty straightforward. So the point here is, if you're gonna be the person sourcing your fabric, you had better keep the information organized somewhere. And so this is where you keep it organized, okay? This is what you do. You put everything about each style into one document. And a lot of times people say, oh, what about a tech pack? A tech pack is kind of like the bigger picture, and a bill of materials lives inside of that very often, or they can be separate, it doesn't matter. Point is, you need the information in a document, okay? Now, just to go through this really quickly, just make sure we're good on time, okay? Just to go through this really quickly, you wanna put in the information for your style. So let's say style name is, ruffle dress. So you have your style number, you have your base size. So base size is, we're gonna do, our first one is a medium. These are just some good high level information you wanna put in your notes. Now, you come down here at the bottom, or sorry, in fabric, you're gonna fill in these gaps. So for example, so Bernadette asked me about polyester spandex, like 80-20. Everybody has that. So I'll give you an example. So Sportech has that fabric, right? 80% polyester, 20% spandex, for sure. Now we're gonna say this is Tricoat. Just like the type, right? Style number, I don't know, whatever it is. The vendor will tell you that. Color, blue, or we'll call it navy. Width, this is 58 cuttable. That's probably the most common cuttable width. Content, 80%, 80% poly, 20% spandex. Okay, you guys getting this? Placement on the garment. So this is just more notes if you want to like just identify where on the garment the fabric lives. The yield, again, let me know if you guys want to do some more stuff on the yield. I can do a video on that. But it's how much fabric the garment is using, number of rolls, yardage, and total quantity. So I will share this with you guys. As a matter of fact, again, I'm going to push this because I really want you guys talking. Actually, I have nothing whatsoever to talk about at the end of this. I just want you guys talking and I want interaction. So if you guys will go, again, on our Facebook or on Instagram and say bill of materials, I will send this to you, okay? So if you say bill of materials, I'll send this out to you guys. You can use this as a template when you're sourcing, okay? Same thing with trim. You're just gonna put the information, zippers, elastics, buttons, whatever you need, go put that in there, okay? No, you can't put it in the chat. It's gotta be on our social. Nice, Caitlin, I love that. And then graded trim. So as you go style to style, you're gonna wanna order different sizes. So you put that into, and you can say, well, what do I need per size of the trim, okay? Hopefully this makes sense. You come down, boom, style number 2, style number 3. You guys will be pros if you do this. If you give this to somebody filled out, you're going to be in a much better situation. Part of it's about like not looking like a complete noob. I know I have to say it, but people don't like working with those that they know they're gonna have to spend a ton of time on, right? And so we wanna be prepared to really be accepted into this world. And I want you guys to be successful in this process. So make sure you have your stuff together and make sure that like you're filling out the information, because the biggest thing that manufacturers, when I get together and I hang out with my other friends that own factories, the thing that we are banging our heads on the table about, it's not about the ideas. We love the ideas. It's about the lack of readiness, the lack of information, and the lack of concrete, details for a product. And what happens is when we don't have information, really good information, that's when it takes way longer or mistakes are made. So it's super important. Yeah, that's kind of like my 2 cents on that. I'll go back to the slideshow now. We'll see if there's anything else here. Okay. Couple real quick pro tips. Number 1, source in stock fabrics. I can't tell you enough. You guys are in a place where you're just trying to get the wheels turning. I'm basically frustrated with how many people are pre-revenue, right? If I have another person tell me of course, you're gonna start at pre-revenue. That means you haven't made any money yet, right? I want you to get to a place where you're making money, okay? Now, why does this matter? Because if you're sourcing fabrics from freaking India and you have to wait 2 or 3 months for it to come, what are you doing? You're not making money. So find fabric that's good enough. Don't be so picky. There are millions of yards of fabric in LA. LA is so, I would be willing to say very, very, very confidently, there's no city in the country that touches LA in terms of fabric. We have so much stuff here. There's literally no reason you could ever have to source overseas if in your first 3 years of business. Source in stock fabrics and make sure that you can buy a roll or 2, okay? That's number 1. Number 2, leverage same fabrics and colors across different styles. So this is a big hack, right? Let's use this as an example. We've got this tri-blend jersey fabric, poly, cotton, rayon shirt. Now, I might want to use this for a long sleeve shirt style. I might want to use this for, I don't know, stretch, maybe for some underwear or something, right? Think about what fabrics you can use on multiple styles, because then you can you can stretch it further. What that also does, it's good for merchandising, honestly. It makes your line look cohesive when you have similar fabrics in multiple styles. Okay, you guys get me there? So it's really just win-win. You're saving money. You can order more fabric because you're using it for multiple styles and it looks good. So make sure to think about the whole collection, what fabrics you can use. Less fabrics, but use them across styles. Save you more money, allow you to do the number 1 thing, which is get to market and start making dough, okay? Avoid dyeing fabrics. Gosh, I understand you want the Pantone, whatever, that's like the turquoise and it's so specific, but again, just don't do it. If you're just starting up, avoid it unless it is so important to your business and it's like you are the turquoise company and you need the specific Pantone, don't do it. it's expensive. There's high minimums, there's setup costs. It's just, I just advise against that. So avoid dyeing fabrics in the beginning, and then source locally. I already said this a million times. Just don't look outside to China. Don't try to save pennies here and there. It's all here, and their stuff is imported too. So that's available if you want it. And there's also a lot of really good LA made fabrics here too. Okay. Boom, we're done. We're Indie Source. Let's make a fashion brand together. Thank you guys for hopping on with me. This was really fun. I know there's so much more to talk about. So before I go, let's pull up some questions and do a little Q&A. And yeah, there should be a question box. So you guys can go in and ask any questions that you have and be specific. I want to know about the challenges that you are facing right now in relationship to sourcing, okay? Okay, so someone said, before sourcing fabric, do I need to set up mailing service and business license? Wondering what is the best mailing service in this industry. I'm not sure what you mean by that. You should set up your business because very often they will want a business license and a reseller's certificate. So they want to know that you can resell. Just like if you guys have experience selling blank t-shirts, you can't buy blank t-shirts from like American Apparel at a wholesale price unless you are legally allowed to resell that product and you're modifying it. You're putting a print on it. The same thing with fabric. You just have to show them that you're a reselling company. You're going to do something with the fabric and then you're going to sell it. Can I watch this webinar later? Yeah, we'll put it up. We'll put it up. It's actually on Facebook Live, so it's already up. So go check it out and comment. Where do I find linen or other fabrics pre-shrunk and dyed, ready for sewing? Can I find any linen that is not free? Oh, that's good. I've actually had a number of people that have had this problem. I don't have you know what? I'll look into that for you, Lauren. That's a really good question. If it's pre-washed, but we'll see if we can get the community to find a good resource for that. Because we have had the same issue and not having it pre-washed, and obviously those linen fabrics will get you. They're tricky with the washing. All right, what else, guys? Anything else? Okay, I need a woven nylon cotton fabrics. Since you're in LA, do you have access to mills that make that woven nylon cotton fabric? Yes. Send me an email, but be more specific, right? Be more specific than that so that we know exactly what we're looking for, right? There are a number of vendors that will do some pre-wash here. Yeah, small quantities. It depends on what you're saying. The tricky part with washing, and honestly, all dye house related things, is that they have higher minimums. They use different machines for their washes, so it ends up being difficult to do washing. I always ask the vendor that you're working with, the fabric company, if they have a partner that they work with, because again, that could just put more liability, I hate to say it, back on them to manage it. There are some mills in New Hampshire, yeah. They seem to be doing some interesting stuff up there. Yes, if you need a bill of materials, if you're sourcing it yourselves, if you're using Indie, you do not need a bill of materials because we make it for you, basically. So, because we are the ones buying the fabric, coordinating with the vendors, sending the purchase orders, checking in the fabric, making sure that the quality is right. And then once we move you into production, we do that except on a big scale. We buy all the fabric, we manage the whole thing. So again, this is something to think about. Where are my strengths? What is the thing that I'm really, really good at? Should it be sourcing? If you have a background in textiles or a degree, maybe it makes sense for you to do your own sourcing, right? But if you're fire at marketing and that's your thing, I wouldn't spend any time on sourcing. Okay? I would say 100% of your day needs to be building your community, creating marketing campaigns, ads, and excitement around what you're doing. And that's what we're here for, is to be able to let you do that. So case by case basis. if I'm working with factories in China, should we be purchasing the fabric and shipping it to their factory? Well, I would say no. It depends on what you need, Susie. So I can't imagine why that would really make sense if you're producing it overseas to buy it here and send it out there, unless it's a special kind of fabric. So no, I would probably source the fabric there. But again, my advice, if you're within the first few years of starting your line, is to not do anything overseas. All right, when you buy the fabrics, does IndieSource charge us markup price per yard or service charge? No, we charge you for our time. The time that it takes to source everything is what we charge for. If I need an exact fabric, how do you handle this? I have a PhD in textiles, any manufacturing help. Nice. Well, usually if you need an exact fabric, that means you need other things too. So again, my thing on specificity is like, send us an email, send us the breakdown of your project, and let's build a scope of work together so we can identify what we need to do so that you're happy. So if we can put together a statement of work, we can hand it off to the experts. I have, just here in my office, 6 very capable project managers that know very much about textiles and could source pretty much anything at this point. We have it all on lock. So yeah, send us an email and you can talk to our team and we can get you going. Okay, my business is based on being silk free and I need chiffon, satins, georgettes, crepes. Is poly my only option? Are there many places in LA I can source these solids and prints? Yes, there's plenty of places that you can source that. Silk free. I would look at Fabric Avenue. I would look at Robert Kaufman. I would look at RC International for some of those wovens. If I think of some more, I'll let you know too. Amazing, guys. Thank you so much for your time today. I know you guys are hustling. The one thing that I would really ask is that any feedback you can give in terms of you being able to source new fabric, getting your samples made and taking your business to the next level, comment on our Facebook or Instagram page and let us know where you're at. I also want to know the challenges. So if there's something outside of fabric sourcing that you're stuck on, let me know. And here's a little thing I'm doing even right now. If you need some coaching, I'm doing some very, very quick 3 to 5 minute coaching with designers that are trying to get their lines off the ground. So again, if you're interested in that, hit us up and we'll schedule something. It's valuable because not only do you get help, but everybody else can learn. So I'm going to have some coaching sessions soon. I'm actually doing one today on our Facebook group. So Natalie, go ahead. I think she posted the Facebook link. So it's just Facebook.com/Indie Designers. I posted here again. And we'll do some coaching and keep it rolling, guys. Thank you. Have an awesome day. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.